Hello everyone and welcome back to EcoBiz channel. Today we are diving into the second lesson, which is the economic systems in grade 10. Uh, Simple defined, an economic system is how a country or society organizes its resources to meet people's needs. It's just like a system to manage the stuff that we need. So, in this system, a country needs to answer three basic questions, which is what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce. And here we'll be talking about the goods and services and the methods, and then who gets to consume those goods and services after they are produced. So each and every country answers these questions differently based on the availability of the resources that they have. Okay, so let's dive a little bit broader in these three questions of what to produce. That is, when a country decides what to produce, they need to consider the goods and services that people need or want. For example, healthcare, education, recreational activities. And when it comes to how to produce, they also need to consider the amount of labor needed to produce those goods or amount of labor needed to produce those services, if it's healthcare or if it's education or if it's infrastructural development, and the type of machines that they need to use and the technology, which is research and development. And then they also need to consider for whom to produce, who is going to consume the goods and services that the government or the private sector is producing. Is it for the whole society? Is it for adults? Is it for kids? So they need to consider that who is going to consume those goods. Okay. So after answering these type of after answering these three questions of for whom to produce, what to produce, and how to produce, we then dive deeper into the type of economic systems. And there are three type of economic systems. There is a traditional economic system, command or planned economic system, and the market economic system. These are the three main types. Okay. However, there is a mixed economy, but in this case, we are going to focus on these three types, and then I'll explain further the mixed economy. Okay, so on the traditional economic system, this is simple based on the customs, which is traditions that have been followed by their ancestors. People tend to dwell much on their cultural values. They are aware of the duties that they are supposed to do, and they they rarely use much of technology because they are still based on the traditional methods that their ancestors used to use when they were producing, whether it's farming. Mainly it's like in the rural communities. It's common in the rural communities where people usually practice farming based on what their forefathers did in the back. Okay, and then this is going to take us to the command economy, which is government controlled. In this case, the government decides what to produce, how to produce it, and for whom to produce. Mainly, the government focuses on the social welfare of its citizens, so they provide goods and services like the education, healthcare, safety for their citizens, infrastructure development, all of those goods and services that are good for the welfare of the people. So in this case, the government owns most of the resources, and prices for goods and these services are usually controlled by the government. Okay, I hope you guys understand the difference between the traditional economic system and the command or planned economic system. Okay. Um Then our third type of economic system is the market economic system. In a market economic system, these are individuals and businesses who they make decisions hand on hand. They decide the prices of goods and services based on the demand and supply. So there is more like a private ownership of the resources in this market economic system. So in simpler terms, it's like there is freedom of choice between the consumers and the producers. Okay, and there is kind of competition because everyone wants to be better than the next service provider. And this leads us to the second section of the disadvantages and advantages of these three market systems that we described above. Okay, so under the traditional economic system, there is a simple way of life because people depend mainly on what has been done back in the days. It's as simple as that. There are no complications. You don't need to prove a thing. You just have to follow the tradition, follow what has been done in the past, and they rely mainly on their community values. They are deep rooted in the community values, and there is low cost of production because they don't focus on research and development. They don't use much technology, and mainly their production relies on hard labor because everyone knows what they are supposed to do. So they hardly use advanced machinery or improved technologies. So um, it leads to this disadvantage of having the limited growth because they don't invent in technologies, in latest technologies to improve their production of goods and services. And then on the command or planned economy, there is equal distribution of goods and services, simple because the government here is the only one that makes sure that the resources and the services, the goods and services are equally distributed to everyone who is in need of them. Just like education, government ensures that everyone has good access to education, everyone has good access to health. Whether you've got money or no money, you are catered for, especially here in South Africa. Okay, and there is less income inequality, like I've just explained, that whether you are poor or you are rich, the government tries by all means to close that gap between the two, where the rich or where the poor will have access to health, will have access to education, will have access to sanitation, to clean water, regardless of their income. And then the focus is much on the social welfare. Um, I I think I've tackled on that. So government ensures that all the basic needs are met for the citizens. However, there are limited resources in this case because it's only the government that takes care of the protection and distribution of these goods and services. There are no other outside parties that come to help with the resources. Then, under the market economy, consumers have got a freedom of choice. Like I said, they choose what to produce and what not to produce. So, in this case, if a company decides they're not going to provide education to everyone because their primary goal is to make profit. So if it's not profitable for them to produce a certain good, they're not going to produce or they're not going to invest much in producing those goods and services. So there is that kind of freedom. They are not forced, unlike on the command economy, where the government ensures that all the basic needs are met and everyone has access to everything. In this case, it's about who affords and who is available and who wants what. So it also encourages the competition because at the end of the day, one person wants to be better than the next person. So in this case, it promotes innovation because people keep on researching more and more so that they can produce goods and services that are better than the other competitor. There is private ownership of resources, and this leads to inequality distribution of goods and services. So you must remember that in exam in an exam setup, because they are going to ask you about these questions like what is the main difference between command and market economies, and you might also be asked about giving examples of mixed economy, or how does a traditional economy answer the question of what to produce. So you should be able to state the examples that we discussed above are also highlighting the advantages that we stated. Okay, so this is just for revision sake. We would do more questions, we would do more revisions as time goes on. For now, I'm just recording this video so that those who will be writing in May, they may have a small like summarized notes. When you don't want to go through the textbook, you just have to quickly go through this, and then you quickly have a recap of what you're supposed to write in an exam. Okay, yeah. So under the mixed economy, most countries use a mixed economic system which combines government involvement and the private sector involvement on the other side, so that there is a balance in between the two. So here there is market freedom, whereby there is what you call this, demand and supply of goods and services. Prices get determined by that. However, it is very difficult to manage. Remember, there is a private sector which deals on its own way, and then there is a government which also deals on its way. So usually there are difficulties in trying to manage such an economy. Just take off state-owned enterprises, take into consideration the street vendors. How do you manage such an economy? Anyway, this is not a question that you should answer for today. Today, we're just doing a recap, reminding you what economic systems are about, and what advantages and disadvantages fall under these three type of economic systems. Okay. I'm just gonna leave this here, and then you can give me an answer in the comment section. Which economic system allows prices to be determined by supply and demand? Please provide your answer on the comment section. And I think for today that will be all. If you really find this series helpful, please like, subscribe, and reshare, so that the video reaches a lot of people who might be in need of this. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. I really appreciate you. See you next time. Bye.